This is a 2019 Nissan Rogue, and today we're going to be replacing the cabin air filter. As we're about to head into spring, we're going to be cranking the AC a little bit more and want to be sure the filter is good and clean as we are going to be pumping more air through the vehicle. Gratefully, we have minimal parts need as it's technically a toolless air filter swap. Now, one thing, you might need a poker or prier, like a flathead screwdriver in case the filter gets stuck. I'll show you once we're under there. But the filter itself, you can pick it up at any auto parts store, online order. They're all pretty stock and standard. Just be sure you're getting the right size. I'll have a suggested spec. You can also see in the bottom right corner there of the box, but I'll add the spec in the description below the video too. And to that end as well, in terms of recommended change interval, manufacturers put 12,000 miles or annually, so once a year. Honestly, on internal combustion engines, I often will do the cabin air filter and the engine air filter at the same time. Engine air filter on the Rogue is every 30,000 miles. So, sometimes it's easier to remember to do all your filters at the same time. But definitely good to be sure you're staying on top of. If it is restricted, that ultimately means your air conditioner and your heating can take a little bit longer as your air blower, air handler is having to overcome more restriction, and ultimately means you'll get less hot or cool air circulating in the cabin. So to show where we're going to be for the cabin air filter, go inside the passenger's side here. If you look underneath the glove box, right under here, this is our magical cabinet where we're going to be working. So I'll get us set up and we'll start working away to get that cover off. Okay, now that we're all set up in here, you can see this little cover here has a little bit of a pull trap to it. Go ahead and give that a yoink very carefully. And it is going to come right off. Oh. Careful on the alignment there. And actually something helpful while we are taking this off, we'll take note of it when it goes back on too. It has a little tab right there, so it does just realign in a very specific way. Filters, for some reason, on some Nissan models, they're actually bigger than the port housing will allow. Kind of an interesting design to it. So we're going to give it a little bit of a push to really, you can see it bending there. Ooh. And we do that so that we're squishing it down and letting it be able to fit out. It's okay if you have to wrestle the used one out. Tell you what, I'm gonna get this situated a little bit better and then I'll cut to the cut scene of me taking it out. All right, it's still giving me a little bit of a fight here, so I'm just gonna grab a flathead screwdriver. It's actually just the adapter bit. I'm gonna see if this might help me. All right, the classic before and after shot here. You can see our old filter and new filter. Obviously, it looks like we were doing a lot of good job catching material in the old one. And the new one actually has a little bit more pleating to it, albeit this is aftermarket, so kind of interesting to see. Something else of note too, this is actually a stock filter. You can see we have the regular media, and it has this plastic weaving on the back end, which adds rigidity and helps make sure everything holds itself nice and steady, which is nice to see. So this after filter one doesn't have that, but the good news is, and this is actually true for your HVAC, your air handler in your home as well. Whenever you're doing an air filter swap, you always want to pay attention to the direction of airflow. Sometimes that actually matters. So on this, the old one, you can see the end caps are on top and we have this air arrow pointing this way. So that's partly why the side is dirtier, because the air was coming into the filter and passing out. So this was facing forward towards the engine bay. So you want to be sure, especially if you're using a stock filter or something that has this duality to it, you're not going to damage anything if you put it in technically backwards, but it's just good to pay attention to and be sure you're putting your best filtering foot forward for some nice alliteration, I guess. This aftermarket filter, though, it doesn't have that exact type of pleating. So we could technically put it in backwards. It's going to be the same on either side, but we also have that arrow mark too. So just wanting to call that out. You can look for it either on the sides or the top like it is on the stock. Ultimately, it came out in this exact orientation. We're pulling it out to the right. So too are we going to be doing it this way too. So just want to be sure we're affirming that to be sure everything comes out nice and neat. Also, another flag, and I mentioned it while we were taking out the old one, since, again, the openings on these filter covers are smaller than the filter media, we have to be sure we're able to squeeze down, shrink the height of the filter. Easiest way to kind of tell that is looking for where your hard sides are. So in this case, the top and bottom are these hard, rigid cardboard. So that's not going to be the way that we're flexing it, but rather we're going to use the soft sides and doing it this way, and using that as a way to bring it down. So you'll see, just thought it'd be helpful to talk it through before we go under, and recognize that this is kind of the thing that will require you to maybe wrestle with it a little bit, but by doing that dimpling effect, that's how you can bring down the height and be sure it fits underneath. Once the filter is in, we want to also give it as good a secure shake as possible. The bottom portion of this actually remains exposed thanks to the way the cover is designed. So I'm going to be doing that just to make sure everything re-expands, that nothing is still caught up. If you do find anything's caught, obviously you can take it out and reinstall. But thought that would be helpful to talk through before we go back under. But with that, we'll go ahead and do the reinstall. Okay, we are repositioned under here. So like I mentioned, we're going to be dimpling. I'm actually going to take the top half of, and the bottom. Make sure we squeeze them under there. Man, this one is definitely persnickety. You can see the pleating will undo itself. So just be mindful of that. But shrinking this down in size. And working it in. There we go. Okay, repositioned the camera here. Looks like we're actually pretty good. Just kind of kept working in there, gave it my nice shake to make sure everything's sitting in there, and also make sure the top right corner of the filter is sitting nice and secure as well. So overall, we want to make sure it looks good and plumb, which looks like we're in there. So we'll go ahead and get the cap, and we'll replace that too. Okay, we got our cap here. Again, this has a retainer clip, or rather an edge to it. So I'm gonna feed this back over here, make sure we're engaging. Just kind of working it a little bit. There we go. The nice thing, while this is a very persnickety cover, I will say once you feel it lining up, it's going to move in there. Again, just be mindful of the two retainer clips there as they click in. And just like that, we are done. Once you have the swing of this, it takes only a couple minutes, especially as you work in how to get everything lined up. But again, good to be sure you're doing it at least once a year, or you can even line it up with your other filter replacements. Overall, good to be sure that you have clean air and also are minimizing restriction. But that's going to do it for this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to comment with any other how to fix it videos that would be helpful to cover in the future. Thanks again for watching.